territory through the mountains at that time and get over to Ormoc Bay and to free that over there, which by the time we got there was pretty well freed anyhow. But on the way over there, our first actually combat mission that you had to where we got into combat, actual combat, was there was a supply line run through the island of Leyte, and the Japanese at that time used that to cut across the islands on, but we caught them there on that supply line, and we took it, and we captured several at that time. We had a few guys that got injured while I was there, and so after securing that mountain, we went down in the valley and on up another mountain and started up to the third mountain actually, and we'd been leading all this way. And then, so they gave us the orders then to hold up because they were going to put another platoon to go through to lead for it. Well, so we pulled back. They started up this mountain and they run into fire, so we got stopped. So we moved back to the second mountain that we was on, and then every day we would go back to this other first mountain because they had cut our supply line off at that time. So we went back every day trying to retake that. We eventually did, but that's at the time is when we couldn't get food into us because it was raining all the time and the planes couldn't come in, drop food to us. So we went 7 days without any food at that time. We had plenty of water because we could get down to water, but we didn't have any food at that time. So after after securing the back mountain again, why then we took off again, and at that time is when I got the dengue fever and yellow jaundice. So they moved out, and then I had to catch up with them later on. And when we got over then to Ormoc Bay, it was almost Thanksgiving at that time, and so they loaded us up on trucks, and we got to ride back in trucks to where we'd originally had our base on the other side of Leyte. But the bad part there was, it being it was Thanksgiving, they fed us turkey and cranberries and everything else, which we shouldn't have because we weren't used to eating, and everybody got dysentery at that time. So we spent that time and not too long in Leyte, and we then loaded up and we went on up to the island of Luzon, which was that's the main island in the Philippines. And we had to take what we called was Clark's Airstrip, and it was very, very secured. They had pillboxes all through that airport, and so we had a tough time. In fact, I lost my radio operator there at that time. 20 millimeter caught him in the leg at that time, and so I went without a radio operator for quite some time. But then eventually we took Clark Airstrip there, and after going through there, then when we got into Manila, why I was given the orders to cross country and pick up the 1st Cavalry because we were going to bring them in with us at that time, and that was the time when I got the Bronze Star at that time. Just before that, then while we were there, we had to go back and take out some more mountains. Well, we got up onto this one mountain, and the Japs got us pinned down there, and there was a valley, kind of a little valley there, and they were on the other side, and we were on this side, but we had 2 men that were shot that were laying out in the field, and they were firing, of course, and so at that time I had told our captain, I says, I want you to line up the machine guns on this side, and you fire over my head, and I'll go out and get those 2 guys. That's when I got the Silver Star at that time. And I got him out. We got him out, got him back. So then after spending and we jumped on the Perry at that time, or the one, I didn't jump in that group. They went up, one company did. And then also we had this Los Baños prison camp, which had our prisoners there and a bunch of other civilians. And so B Company of our outfit, they jumped over there, and they had boats come across on the water, and then they jumped. And that particular morning was very lucky for the prisoners because the Japanese were going to annihilate the whole works that morning. They were out there doing their calisthenics. They had their guns stacked, And when we jumped, why, we caught them there again, and we never lost a man, never lost a man. Took them back to what they call the Bilibid prison, and that's where they stayed. Built them back up again. They're real thin. They just were in bad shape. They treated them and got them back. In fact, at our reunions back in the States, a lot of those people attended our reunion. So we got to see them again. Well, anyway, then we left a lady at that time. I ended up in the hospital at that time, and when I was in the hospital, our company moved to Okinawa. So as soon as I could get out of the hospital, I joined the outfit at Okinawa. And in the meantime, then I had gotten the battlefield commission, so I was promoted to a second lieutenant. Before this time, I started out as a private, and that was in Fort Snelling. Before we got to Toccoa, Georgia, I had the authority to be you might say, an acting PFC. Well, I got down to Toccoa, and I did get the PFC almost right away. And while we were still there, I become corporal. Then it wasn't too long after that, and I was promoted to buck sergeant, which is 3 stripes. Well, then the government automatically got rid of the buck sergeant, and you automatically went to what they call a staff sergeant. Then, when I was staff sergeant, then I went to tech sergeant, and I had all these ratings. Well, then they put me at first sergeant, but I never got my rating because that's when they gave me that battlefield commission, so it never got on the books. I actually was first sergeant, had 119 men at that time, and so I never ever got the rating of first sergeant, even though I did that job for quite a while. Okay, and then after getting everything cleared up, we got Manila cleaned up. We went through there, and it was burning that ahead of us. They had that all fired up, and we got that cleared out. And then when we went back to our camp and stayed there for just a short time, and then that's when they decided after we had left the Philippines and gone to Okinawa, and that's where I rejoined the outfit. Then we was to jump on or to fly into Japan at that time. But in the meantime, the bombs had been dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and that was the war then stopped, at that time. But we went into Japan 2 days before the treaty was signed. We were the first troops to go into Japan, and we went in on the 31st, and they signed the treaty on the 3rd of September. We were in there in August. And so while we were there, and I was only spent 2 months in Japan because I had 81 points. Well, you needed 82, but they sent me back to the States at that time, and we went up by the Aleutian Islands, and we came back. We come back on the General USS Waggle, and the only bad part about that trip was when we were up by the Aleutians, our engines conked out, and we couldn't control the up and down of the ship, and the water come up over the deck. And that's about the only time I almost lost everything I had, but I didn't. I hung on. But anyway, and on the way back though, I had a hatch full of African Americans that I had to guard at that time. So that was kind of my job coming back from the Japan. Then we landed in San Francisco, and from San Francisco, they sent us to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas at that time. And there again, all we were doing was just getting ready to get out of the service. So from Fort Leavenworth, then, they sent me home because I needed one more point. So they gave me a 58-day recuperation leave, which was a nice deal because that was like 58-day vacation with pay, see, at that time. So then after the 58 days, I went back to Fort Benning, Georgia, and then that's where they sent me back to Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, Missouri, and then that's when I got the discharge from the service. And I went back home, and when I got back home, after kind of just, you might say, laying around for quite a while, and I had a nervous problem at that time, and so I just took it easy for a while, and then I started back with that government issue on education and started in the welding business, but my nerves wouldn't do it. And I did work with my brother at that time in a welding shop, but it just wasn't for me. So I Then I went and I started in the